How do you go from being a self-professed skate punk to a design director at Nike, creative director at Patagonia, and land as the global creative director for Sonos? As a creative force, Michael Leone has worked with some of the most product-driven companies out there. In this episode, Aaron and Eli talk with Michael about the tension between sustainability and business goals, maintaining a consistent voice and tone across a company like Patagonia that sells hundreds of different products globally, and some of the traits Michael looks for when hiring for his creative teams. So crank up your Sonos and enjoy this episode with Michael Leone.
I've worked with lots of search firms, both as a leader searching for new talent for my teams, and as an individual exploring new steps in my career. But I trust none more than Wirt & Company. Since 1995, Wirt & Company has been the design community's most trusted search firm, co-founded by a designer and led by a CEO who has in-house operational startup experience. Wirt & Company is guided by the principle that creative leadership is essential to business success. They've helped some of the most admired brands from early-stage startup to Fortune 500 build world-class creative teams. We're talking about companies like Airbnb, the New York Times, the Four Seasons, Notion, Figma, Google, Cartier, and Fair. Not bad. If you're looking for a partner to help you find the right person for a critical role, look no further than Wirt & Company. And if you're looking for your next design leadership role, Wirt & Company will guide you through the process as a friend and a champion throughout your journey. They take the time to get to know you, to understand what you need professionally and personally. Whether you're looking for your next role or your next team member, Wirt & Company can help you find a meaningful relationship. Visit wirtco.com to learn more and get in touch. That's WERTCO.com. Support for Design Better comes from Gusto, who make running a small business easy. Get 3 months free at gusto.com/designbetter once you run your first payroll. Running a small business is hard work, especially all of the payroll, quarterly tax filing stuff, and HR things. I'd rather be focused on my business and my customers than dealing with the administrative duties. But Gusto makes it easy. They automate the complicated parts of running a business. With Gusto, I never miss federal or state payroll tax filings. And I love the time off requests and time tracking tools. Gusto even offers a small group health insurance option for nearly any budget. When you run into issues you need help with, their HR experts are ready to help. It's a very well-designed product, easy to use, and great emotional design that will put a smile on your face. Design Better listeners get 3 months free once they run their first payroll. Just go to gusto.com/designbetter. That's gusto.com/designbetter.
Michael Leone, Global Creative Director at Sonos. Thanks for being on the Design Better podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Michael, you've got an interesting background. You're leading design at Sonos, and we want to talk about that. And you've been at Patagonia and lots of interesting companies. But I got to ask you first: are you a skater?
Yeah, I grew up skateboarding. It's kind of like been something that's kind of framed up my path, my career path in a strange way. But it is part of like how I identify myself as a skater, and it's something I physically do still. So, I would say, yeah.
I used to skate when I was a kid, but I was terrible. I was more aspirational, that I wanted to be a good skater. But not only do you skate and have you been doing it for a long time, but you used to be an art director for a skateboard company. Is that right?
Yeah, I was an art director for Girl Skateboards. Actually, my first job out of college, I did some pro skateboard graphics when I was in high school for a company called New Deal that was popular in the 90s. And then I went to art school. I moved out to California to go to art school. And my roommate, who I met through skateboarding, was working at Girl, editing their videos, the FTC video, and a lot of other stuff in the skateboarding world. So I think just kind of being connected through the activity, the art side of things was something that's always been connected to skateboarding. And it's one of those things that, like, when you're not good enough to be a pro skateboarder, you're either kind of like good at filming people skateboarding, or you're good at photographing people skateboarding, or you're the guy who does the graphics for the boards. So I kind of fell into that side of things. And so I went to work at Girl, and that's where their art director, Andy Jenkins, who's a big influence on me creatively, is a person that kind of took me in. I had no idea how to use a computer. And I had an art degree. So I thought I was going to pace around my studio and like Bruce Nauman, and people were going to come by and look at my work and buy things from me. But it turns out that I didn't work that way, and I had to get a job. So they kind of like trusted me and took me in and taught me how to use a computer, how to, I already sort of knew how to like use Rubylith and, film and sort of things. This was like in the 90s, in this very kind of transformative like period where things were becoming digital. So it was a good time because I had to learn a bunch of new things, but everyone who sort of were veterans in graphics kind of also had to learn a bunch of new things. So it was a good time to kind of take a chance on a kid, and they did that for me. So,
how do you think that your experience as a skateboarder influences the way you think about design today? I've worked with a number of art directors and creative directors who have this common background, that there's this connection to skateboarding, and there's a certain culture, and it seems like that's part of like there's this close connection of thinking creatively and skateboarding. Does it still inform the way you think today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's something in the skateboarding mindset that kind of leads you to being able to reinterpret your environment, right? Obviously, like skateboarders are looking at the urban environment, and they're kind of seeing objects or obstacles or surfaces that were not made for skateboarding, and they're creatively reinterpreting them. And I think if you can take that kind of mindset into any other part of your life, and there's also kind of like, I think this cynicism that comes out of skateboarding culture that's kind of really like has been tied in with like this sort of like Gen X slacker thing, stereotype, that is actually like, that actually turns out to be really useful when it comes to marketing and kind of like being able to, for lack of a better phrase, keep it real when you can, it's easy to identify someone trying to sell you something in an inauthentic way. And I think that skateboarders kind of require authenticity. So it's just a good filter to have, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you've got this background with skateboarding, and you also spent a good bit of time at Patagonia, which Yvon Chouinard always describes the types of people that they hired, especially early on. He calls them dirtbags, like these people that come out of the wilderness and they've been climbing a mountain or kayaking or, doing something crazy and dangerous, but they have this deep passion, and there's this like anti-establishment philosophy that is ingrained. It is part of the Patagonia culture, but it's not taught at Patagonia. What was it like working at Patagonia?
Yeah, there's a couple really interesting things about Patagonia, about working at Patagonia. One of them is to have the opportunity to make decisions that are not always motivated by profit is totally alien to how we're programmed. And it's also super interesting and can be super liberating. It can also kind of take these guidelines that you measure decisions around usually, like, basically like, are people going to buy this if we do this, and taking those away, it kind of leaves a void, and you have to kind of work together with your peers in a different way. Mm-hmm. So it's just really interesting. It's just that you're not going to get that opportunity almost anywhere else. So unless you work for like a nonprofit or something. So, or a church, so, a lot of it, I mean, mostly it felt really familiar to me in terms of coming from working with, core communities like skateboarding, where you understand that, there's a way that this group of people are connected. And what I learned is this happens in the outdoor world, and these other little sport bubbles, the same way it happens in skateboarding. So even though, I'm not a climber or a, endurance trail runner, I can kind of understand what those communities are like and how they operate. And I can see how, like, Patagonia is attracted to people who kind of like take the time to invest in themselves and their own kind of independence. I think like the Yvonne thing is like what he's saying, and some of that stuff that you read about in his book is that he doesn't want to be a boss. They don't want to manage people. They don't really want leaders in the sense of that kind of corporate leader person who talks the loudest. They just want people who are smart people, who are good at what they do and have their own stuff going on. And then you just put like those good people together and good things happen. So, it's kind of like the difference between like when I was at Girl and there were, you get like 3 or 4 people in the room who just get it. And, something comes up that you want to make or you want to do. And you kind of look at each other and you go, should we do this? And you kind of like nod, and you kind of all are kind of synced up already. And you kind of go like, okay, cool, let's do it. Then you go into the bigger world, the bigger corporate world, like a Nike, and you learn that, well, I really can't do that anymore. And these people, this is now like, the village people, and there's like a cop and a fireman and a Native American and they all come from these different places. And now I have to, if I want to do anything, I have to influence these people, and I have to like get them around to understanding and empathizing with the way that I am approaching this. And it's like, it's just a different way of working. So to be at Patagonia for me was a lot more like being at the small skateboard companies.
By the way, I love the idea of Nike being run by the village people. They would make some awesome products.
So Michael, another big facet of working at Patagonia, I'm guessing, is their emphasis on sustainable products. And there's maybe this tension between wanting to be very sustainable and also the need to sell more products just to stay alive. How did that tension play out in your creative work there?
Well, I was, creatively running these individual sport categories. From my point of view, what I was doing was like representing those sport communities, first of all, and then telling the product stories through the lens of, firstly, it's a great product, and here's what it does. And secondly, we care about how it was built and the impact that it has. But firstly, it needs to be the best product. Otherwise, who cares? I mean, you could be like cynical and in the extreme say, well, if Patagonia cares so much, they should just not make clothes, But I think in order to influence other businesses, Patagonia needs to be a successful business, or it's not going to have the impact. Like if the plan doesn't work, then nobody listens, So it's that's a kind of like the conflict, the Patagonia conflict, that and that is what makes it super interesting to people.
In Yvon Chouinard's book, Let My People Go Surfing, he talks about being product driven, and it's such a fascinating idea because to him, he's focused both on the function of the product, the way it works, and also the way it feels. He talks a lot about the way it feels, like the early products that they did, like the rugby shirts, that they could have just been durable, but they were also very colorful. And people stood out on the mountain as they're climbing up a mountain, and people would look at, someone way up on the side of a mountain, and they'd say, like, that's a great shirt. I want that shirt. So there's always been that balance between, of being product driven, of function, and the way it feels. Can you talk a little bit about how you worked at Patagonia to balance those? And I'm curious if that's also something you think about in your current work at Sonos.
Yeah, well, Patagonia is not necessarily a brand design or a marketing company, like the way Nike is. Like, I remember there's this funny article in The Onion that the headline was Nike stops making products and is going to sell marketing.
They could probably make a business out of that.
Yeah, and which is funny because they are really great at that, and I actually think that's like a magic combination when you can do both the way they can. But Patagonia is a product company. To me, it was about creating good, solid design, copy, photography. It's not about fluff, and it's nothing that feels like marketing. And it is difficult to say to a graphic design team, like, "Hey guys, we're not a graphic design company. Like, stop designing. Don't be designy." And I think if you think of like the utilitarian like design language that comes from like pickup truck ads of the 70s, or a little bit of what Draplin Design does, or that kind of like straightforward, honest design. And there is a bit of a visual language that comes with that. So the idea is you never notice the design, you just see through it. And on the other side is the brand, and the brand is what's interesting. The brand is what people want, and they love the brand. So you're trying to make design invisible, which is difficult.
So at Patagonia, and I'm guessing at Sonos, there's a very clear and very strong vision. What would you say to people who are maybe struggling with that vision element a bit? Is there anything that they can do to help put that vision in place, or does that always have to come from the top?
I think one of the most important things is that you have a mission, and not just a mission statement. Sonos, to fill every home with music. I mean, that is something that, I personally feel that, in a world where people are sort of trapped on their headphones, on staring at their screens, to be able to play music out loud in your home and share and have a soundtrack to these moments in your life with your family, whether it's like your kids' bath time or dinner or having friends over or whatever. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's not happening out there. I mean, we've kind of like shut it down pretty much because technology's kind of like privatized everything. So to fill, if you have a mission like, filling every home with music, and you're someone like me who loves music and cares about what your home looks like, then that's a pretty inspiring thing. And I do want to be a part of helping people to do that.
I can totally identify with that mission because I have filled my home with music via Sonos. I have probably 11 Sonos products in the house. And, I play records, I play Spotify, I play the news, I play all kinds of things through the Sonos system. And it changes the way that people interact with each other at a party, when we're making dinner, when we're having dinner as a family, when we're trying to go through bath time. Music makes bath time easier. It's a really profound thing. And I'm struck as I look at all of the different places that you've worked at, like Nike, Levi's, Patagonia, Sonos. Each has a strong lifestyle component, that each of the visions connects to a lifestyle, inspiring athletes, filling homes with music, getting people outdoors and connected to nature. There's this strong lifestyle. And to communicate that, you've really got to tell a story, and you've got to understand people's life, the context, and build that story. Can you talk about how throughout your career, how does story inform where you start your work?
Well, I think personally, I have to believe that I have to do the work and then believe that I have some kind of level of understanding or empathy with who the consumer is. That would be like the starting place. And I think also, as a person who works in design or marketing design or even product design, you have to it's really hard to let go of this part of you that believes that you are the consumer. But I think that you do have to let go of that. And I can pretend to think that I know what Nike's 18 to 24-year-old target person is looking for, but really, like, I don't. I mean, I can try to understand it as much as possible, and I can use data to try to understand it. There are pieces of like certain businesses where I do feel like something like Nike SB, like, yeah, I think there's things about that like, I think that I have to believe that I do understand the mindset of certain consumers better than others. But to me, it's kind of like the great thing about Sonos for me is if you look at who the consumer is, it's like I said, it's someone who is, paying for a streaming service because they care about music. And it's the difference between like someone who listens to Pandora for free and someone who like maybe pays $10 a month for Spotify. And that's like a big difference. That's that kind of like, extra, like, okay, this person like loves music, and then, secondly, people who care about what their home looks like, and maybe, they don't necessarily need to own a home, but, and then if you look at, the price point of the products as well, I mean, just to be frank with you, I mean, I think it puts it into a place where I can look around at my peers here at Sonos and we can go like, oh, okay, we actually are the consumer. This is someone who's like kind of like a little bit further in their career. They can afford these things. They have a home that they care about. They maybe have a family that they want to share their love of music with. And so that's, being a little bit further on in my career, that's a really luxury position, to not be going like, man, I wonder what these 18-year-old millennials are doing on their Snapchat, because I have no idea, so that's kind of nice. The store. So to be in, I guess what I'm saying is like, it's nice to be in a place where the story starts is like, it's something that like, I can just look around me right now and kind of see where it starts.
So when you moved from Patagonia to Sonos and even your prior roles to Patagonia, very different products from what Sonos does, which is more of a technology product. Can you tell any stories about challenges you faced as you made that transition from those roles to your current role?
Yeah, I think some of the shock came from just coming back in the world of like advertising agencies of record and that sort of thing. On my first day at Sonos, I was actually in a pitch for the Wake Up Sell at Home campaign. And I remember it like just being like a deer in the headlights, like, wow, this is like real advertising. I forgot about this. Because, there's a difference between advertising and kind of brand design, and I don't really consider myself to be a marketer or an advertiser. But I do like to be conscious of designing brands. But as far as like the difference from Patagonia to Sonos, I mean, to me, having been in apparel for 20 years or more, maybe now, apparel and footwear and sports, the technology is really coming through on its promise to make the world a better place, and it feels like right now is this really vibrant time where like, I've heard people say that we're in the fourth industrial revolution and we just finished, the third one, which was information. And now we're entering this one, automation. So things are just really speeding up. And to be in this world where like, I can listen to, a podcast about, cars driving themselves. And there's a lot of those, as you guys probably know. And to be in a place where like, I feel like my work is mixed in with where the world is headed and the future of our kind of interactions with each other, and to be a part of like the world of music and the world of tech, and to even just to get the opportunities, because I'm not from tech, was just like a super interesting challenge. So I'm learning a lot, and it's been really fun.
Support for Design Better comes from Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery. Design Better listeners can save 50% on their order at factormeals.com/designbetter50. Use the code designbetter50. You know what happens at my house when things get really busy? In the evenings, we turn to takeout, which can be expensive and it's not very good for our health. Lately, we're making a better choice at crunch time. We turn to Factor for chef-created, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. We like the flexibility of Factor, too. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or you can pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. The meals are so tasty. My wife and I are huge fans, and I like their smoothies, too, which I find are perfect for a quick, healthy breakfast. Factor can help you eat well and feel good while focusing on your career and your family. Head to factormeals.com/designbetter50 and use the code designbetter50 to get 50% off your order. That's code designbetter50 at factormeals.com/designbetter50 to get half off your order. Support for Design Better comes from Gusto, who make running a small business easy. Get 3 months free at gusto.com/designbetter once you run your first payroll. Running a small business is hard work, especially all of the payroll, quarterly tax filing stuff, and HR things. I'd rather be focused on my business and my customers than dealing with the administrative duties. But Gusto makes it easy. They automated the complicated parts of running a business. With Gusto, I never miss federal or state payroll tax filings, and I love the time off requests and time tracking tools. Gusto even offers a small group health insurance option for nearly any budget. When you run into issues you need help with, their HR experts are ready to help. It's a very well-designed product, easy to use, and great emotional design that will put a smile on your face. Design Better listeners get 3 months free once they run their first payroll. Just go to gusto.com/designbetter. That's gusto.com/designbetter. Support for Design Better comes from Uplift Desk, who help you work better and live healthier. Eli and I log a lot of hours at our desks, which can be detrimental to one's health if you're not paying attention to ergonomics. Uplift Desk offer high-quality, well-designed desks, chairs, and accessories to help you build an ergonomic workspace for home or work. Eli recently got a standing desk, and I got a human-scale Freedom chair. I've been dreaming about this chair for a long time, and I finally got one. I've already noticed a big change in my posture with this chair, and my body thanks me for it. Eli is logging a lot more hours standing than sitting these days, and he can make quick transitions with the flip of a switch. We love Uplift Desk, and we know that you will too. Design Better listeners can get a special deal by visiting upliftdesk.com and use the code DesignBetter at checkout for 5% off your order. You'll get free shipping, free returns, and an industry-leading 15-year warranty. Go to upliftdesk.com, use code DesignBetter, and get 5% off. Design a better workspace with Uplift Desk.
So how many people are at Sonos?
I actually don't know. I'm going to guess and say 1,500 people.
It's a pretty big company. And as global creative director, I would assume that you've got a lot of folks that you're managing.
Yeah, the brand design team globally that sits in Santa Barbara is about, I'm going to say 10 people. And then we are starting to have kind of regional representation. So producers and art directors in Europe, China, North America, and which includes, Australia and Canada, some other, we combine a few parts of the globe into these kind of regional groups. But it's really like what I'm really trying to focus on right now is the idea of just like consistent voice, without, the Coca-Cola version of that, where your guidelines are so strict and you're just kind of rolling something out across the globe. But, we're working really hard on like brand guidelines, copy guidelines, photography guidelines, and building on those with the goal. The way we talk about it with the team here is like the goal of one day having like that, I don't know if you've seen like that NASA book of their brand standards, or the New York subway system book of their brand standards, like to have the brand so tight that you could literally like publish a book that people would want, that designers would want. And the guideline stuff, it can feel like a chore sometimes, but I've learned to really embrace it because it allows you to become this kind of machine that you can scale globally. And it just, if you put your work into principles and toolkits that people that work on Sonos all over the world can use, it allows you to have less like one-off conversations about little small executions here and there. So yeah, that's just kind of what I'm interested in right now.
And to have that universal style guide that can guide your work, and there are other teams within Sonos that are also dealing with their own design patterns. In the product itself, the app, particularly the mobile app, I've noticed a lot of design changes as of late. There's font changes and layout changes, and it's the design system as a whole, from the marketing experience to the product experience, is starting to tighten up. What efforts are you doing and your colleagues doing to try to coordinate between these different teams? How does that work?
That's a really good insight and a good question. And I think that was something that I was asking when I came in. And I had a good friend of mine actually voiced to me when I told him that I accepted the job. He was like, I use Sonos. And man, I really want to know, because I wonder about this. Like, do the marketing, app, and product design people talk to each other? Because it seems like the product design is going this direction, the marketing is going here, and the app doesn't connect to this and that. And I was like, wow, I use Sonos too, but I hadn't really thought about it that way. And so when I came in, I was really conscious of that. And I think other people here are now too. And there's a lot of work being done to kind of create this kind of seamless experience across product design, brand design, and UX design. So I think you're going to continue to see, I think, you're seeing these noticeable moves in the app, which is a really, a place where you really will notice them. And those are going to continue to happen. But one of the things is like, like my team, we sort of have our hands on the website, and the UX team has their teams on the app. And so there's like organizationally, we need to kind of reach across the hall a little bit, and kind of take the initiative to link these things together experience wise.
What are some of the ways your teams do that kind of interdisciplinary work or outreach?
I think a lot of it is just like the culture here is just like, we're really trying to be transparent with each other. We're really trying to get input from other teams. There's not a lot of the, what I call hide the sketchbook, that happens at other companies where, people will go away, work on a project, and then they will kind of unveil it for people. There's like a wow moment of like, look what we went away and built. Here there's much better communication tools than just email, that we use. And it's really designed to kind of bring people in, say, hey, we're kicking off this project. We want to do, this is our end state that we want to get to. And we want to really like bring people into it versus kind of, hey, we own this. We'll get back to you when we're done type of thing. So it's just kind of built into the culture.
Do the physical spaces at Sonos reflect that at all? Do people share their work, post it on the walls, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's really digital right now. But I feel like in my own team's space, in our brand design studio, we really are working towards like a studio environment that is kind of, that feels like lived in. There are kind of music ephemera collections of things. There's music playing in the studio. There's, new magazines, there's books, there's posters that we found on the wall. We're really trying to kind of make it a little more tactile. And I think it's like part of being a digital based company. It kind of tends to stay on the devices, but we're really doing a lot of work right now to kind of, like you said, get it on the walls.
So as you shifted from being more of an individual contributor, art director, creative director, kind of rising in the ranks, and now you're global head of creative direction at a pretty big company. What's that transition been like for you as a manager, as a person that is a leader, a design leader? Do do you think of yourself as a design leader, and how do you adapt to that change?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's something that I think you have to always have something to graduate to, and you have to sort of know what comes next. And I think you can't be, when I started out my career designing, skateboard graphics or designing a cool t-shirt, you have to look forward to, what maybe the age where you think you're going to maybe retire or something and go, am I going to be sat here designing t-shirts when I'm 55? And are people going to want me to do that? Probably not. Right. So I think you have to kind of do a little work to plan a track for yourself. And a lot of times, nobody's going to help you do that. So it's something that you have to do yourself. So one of the things I learned, I think early on from being in LA, doing skate stuff and being around a lot of, organically, you're just around a lot of film production stuff if you live in LA and making skateboard films. And, Spike Jonze is one of the owners of Girl that I work for, and seeing how they make films. And really the idea of being like a film director. What I learned is really about just surrounding yourself with the best people in each skill and kind of helping them, understanding their individual goal and helping them get there. And then collectively that all adds up to something. And I think one of the things is just like to just try to find people who are better than you is and you sort of over time, you kind of become what Yvonne calls an 80%er, where you can get to 80% proficiency in a number of things. In his the way he's talking about it is through sports, his angle is I'll be at 80% proficiency at surfing, at climbing, at falconry, whatever else. But the extra 20% that it takes to be a pro athlete, takes so much of your time that you have to fully commit yourself to be a specialist to get that extra 20%. So I'm going to be an 80%er. And I think in brand design or in creative direction, I think that you really have to get into the mindset that you're going to be an 80%er. You're going to have to leave your 100% proficiency at Adobe products, for instance, behind. At a certain point, you're going to have to say okay, there's a new version of Photoshop. I'm not going to learn the updates. I'm graduating from that. And I'm now going to lead a team that has a expert in that. And I'm going to expect them to have that extra 20%, but I'm not going to have that anymore. And that is, so you have to be able to put those teams together and lead those teams.
So those are some of the traits that you look for, this expertise. What are things that you actively avoid when you're hiring for roles, creative roles?
I think I look at a few things. I think people that have a vibrant and creative life in and out of work is interesting to me. I think you can learn a lot from looking at the career choices that people have made. Are they opportunists, or are they looking at an employer and going what are you going to do for me? Because I'm going to add a lot of value to what you're doing, and I'm not just happy to be here. It works both ways. I kind of like that attitude because it shows some confidence, and I guess what I try to avoid is people who have created or gathered this skill set that is based on navigating individual small situations to get from one to the next without having to put anything on the line or make a decision, and I think one of the downsides to corporate culture is it really cultivates this one way. You do have this road that you can take where you could potentially just go from one meeting to the next and get through each day and go home and not have actually done anything, and I think if you work at a bigger company and you're listening to this, you probably know what I'm talking about. So I think that is definitely for me something to avoid. And that involves you needing leaders who will allow people to make mistakes and allow people to fail and allow people to experiment.
I'm very curious. Sonos is about to change quite a bit as voice becomes this mechanism of control. And as a Sonos user, Sonos junkie, I'm desperate for voice control to be able to say, Sonos, play this, whatever. Is that coming soon? Is that something that you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, I am so, first of all, I am so excited that you guys are Sonos users, because it's really like, I think earlier I was trying to explain this transformation that happens to your home. This kind of light bulb moment that you have when you use Sonos and you realize how it's going to change your life and not only change your life, but like your interactions with your family, but like change the way that you value your home,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just so stoked that you guys kind of like understand, like from a design perspective, that we're trying to bring people to understand that moment. And so, to me, I am in the same boat as you. I cannot wait till, like I said, like I'm not having to stare at a device. My hands are free to do other things. I really think it's going to be a big deal. And I really hope that there's a generation that's going to grow up with music as a soundtrack to, moments in their lives in a way that, in a way that we haven't seen like since the Walkman, a real kind of revolution in how we listen to music. And the way that, I think, if you look at like the past 20 years and what we've, from like remember box sets, there was just like all these phases of like weird ways of like listening to music. And now streaming is here. It's not going anywhere. And just the idea of like, you can listen to anything at any time, just by talking to the air and telling it to play something. It's just like amazing to me. And I really think that it's like one of those things where, technology is making our lives better, and I'm 100% behind it. And I'm the same as you. I think it's going to change everything, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that the bridge to Alexa is supposed to be 2017. I'm hoping that it's soon, because I have an Amazon Echo in my kitchen. Listen to a lot of music in the kitchen, and can't wait for that. But cool. And I'll ask you one more question. What are you excited about that you're listening to right now?
Oh gosh. Oh, you know what I'm excited about? This is really funny, but this is, I'm going to maybe embarrass myself, but I just got back from Design Week in Milan, and I'm really big on Shazamming music. Like when I'm in a cab, when I'm in a store, like I'm constantly like kind of like, what is that? And the Milan has this, there's a lot of this type of dance music that is like, it's almost like, I don't know if you remember the group PM Dawn, but it's like, it reminds me of that kind of like where you take a 80s track and you loop it, you put a beat on it, and then you do a new song on top of that. And it's like that is definitely like a thing. And like, so I was like trying to find that music, because I'm constantly like searching for, just like strange new types of music. So I was just like, what is this culture of like looping? I mean, it's not, people loop, famous tracks and put hip hop songs on it all the time, but it's just like, it just seemed to be like a thing while I was there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to look at like Italian dance music and see what's going on. So that is literally like what I've been listening to like the last couple of days. It's just like weird Italian music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks so much for being on the show with us, Michael. It's fantastic to talk to you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.